Hey, welcome back to Leosophy. If I sound funny, it's because I've got sinuses or allergies. Got 3 questions. Here we go. What is the basis of beauty? Oh, I like that. I like the way you phrase that. Depends on what you mean by beauty, but generally, whether we're talking about architecture or art or human beings or an animal, the foundation of beauty is health and fitness. And I know that might sound strange, but when I say that, I mean in a biological sense. Fitness being the ability of an animal to survive its conditions and reproduce. So, symmetry for us, because we're visual creatures, is really the best indicator of health and fitness. A person who has symmetrical features is likely healthy. A person of asymmetrical features is less likely to be healthy, is less likely to be as strong, or any of the positive indicators that we gauge a person with. I know that sounds callous and maybe even a little fascist to say that ugly people are less valuable, and I don't mean it in that sense. I just mean that symmetry is often a good indicator of fitness, and as such we apply that to everything. In a movie, someone who is moral is likely symmetrical. Someone who is immoral is asymmetrical. We even symbolize justice and a lot of other moral concepts with scales. And if you think about it, scales that are evenly balanced are symmetrical, and scales that aren't, corrupt scales, you could say, are asymmetrical. What percentage of charity... No, I'm sorry, I misread that. Again, allergies, sinuses, what have you. What percentage of a person's income should be given to charity? I get this kind of line of thinking a lot, and don't take offense anybody, but I get that line of thinking from a lot of people in other countries who tend to view charity as something that you're taxed on, and it confuses the heck out of me as an American. In my opinion, charities, the whole point of them being charities is that they are optional. It's based on your preference and what you want to do with your money. I don't think of these compulsory donations as charities. That's crazy to me. That's in my opinion, and yes, this is sort of a libertarian opinion or classical liberal opinion. In my opinion, if you're helping dogs, even if you love dogs, if you're helping dogs with 5% of your income because the government took 5% of your income without your choosing, you didn't donate to dogs or charity or what have you. You were mugged by your government, and the money was used for something good, so it's not as much of an outrage, I guess. If they used it to bomb a city, which they often do, then it would be less acceptable. But because they're helping dogs, you're helping a charity. Well, you're not helping a charity. You're not donating anything. You're just being taxed. That's not the same thing. So to answer the question, make it short, the amount of money you should donate to a charity is whatever you feel you should donate, whatever you're comfortable donating, whatever you think would be helpful without causing a detriment to your own well-being. That's how much. It should be optional. It's not something... Yeah, okay, next question. Oh my gosh. I guess this is, excluding the first one, this is the libertarian episode. Should there be exclusions on free speech? No, there should not. I don't get that either. All my life I've been brought up to think, and some of my peers, that if you're hurt by words, then you're in the wrong because you're unable to see it from the other person's point of view. And similarly, that a society that is terrified of people speaking out about something, that's a corrupt society. That's a society with problems. They should be able to tolerate that. And it's astonishing. And what's weird about it is a lot of people I know, a lot of people I grew up with, who understood this as children, they've grown up to be completely opposed to that. They think that there should be restrictions. And I've also noticed that it tends to correspond with sort of the cult-like worship of a certain leader or politician. I've noticed that. Let's say hypothetically some politician proposes something really crazy, I don't know, trains that go over the ocean, ridiculing it should be par for the course. And yet there's an enormous subset of society that is appalled at the idea that you would ridicule it. And I think the reason why is it's just a cult of personality. And by the way, the same goes for the other side too. I mean, it's gotten to a point where if you criticize something conservative, you're a shill, and if you criticize something leftist, you're a fascist. And neither side seem too keen on free speech at this point. But I'm very, very, very pro free speech. I think every human being should be a jester. That's my opinion. Every human being should be a joker. Little background on that. During the medieval period, which as everyone who's seen any of my videos probably knows, I have a lot of admiration for that period, and that I think it's maligned by modern pop culture and media. But during that period, people didn't have freedom of speech. It's one of the big issues that I have with that period. But here's the interesting thing. If you were a peasant and you criticized the king, they would kill you. If you were a peasant and you criticized the pope, they would kill you. If you were a king and you criticized the pope, you'd be excommunicated, which meant that you'd be damned. But if you were a jester in a monarch's court, you could say anything. They were the only people, period. I mean, even the Pope had to follow certain rules. Jesters could say whatever they wanted. They could mock the king, they could mock the Pope, they could mock God. They could say anything. They were the only people, and it was an important role in society. We tend to view it as like, especially in media, all the jesters are always just like disabled people who aren't taken seriously and end up being abused. No, truthfully, and you see this in other cultures. American Indians have sacred clowns. Almost said sacred cows. Sacred clowns. That's a whole other video. The idea that there should be a subset of society that can mock and deride the biggest, most closely held values that society has, I think is very important. It's so important because then you don't get to the point where you just start worshiping all these old relics of your society to a point that you can't make decisions for yourself. That's a thing I see a lot. There's a lot of sacred things in our society right now. Things that should not be held sacred. Things that need to be broken, destroyed. We need iconoclasts right now more than anything, and freedom of speech. And this goes in, not just America, the West entirely. There needs to be a massive, and the internet helps with that a lot. There's a lot of uprising on the internet. There's a lot of ridicule on the internet, and I think that's a good thing. I'm glad that it exists, and I think that it's more in the vein of free speech than anything. In fact, I would go so far as to say that if the founders were alive today, they would not be pirates. They would be shit posters on the internet. I'm serious. So yeah, answer your question, bottom line. No, free speech should not be restricted. Obviously, the only exceptions would be things that cause a danger to others, like threatening someone. That should be taken seriously. Threatening to do something terroristic. Of course, there's a difference between saying something and threatening something, or just endangering people. There's a reason why, at least in this country, screaming fire in a crowded theater, that's the classic description of it, is illegal. But other than that, no, words do not hurt. Well, they can hurt, but it's your responsibility as the person who received those words to get over it. That's up to you, and that's good for you, actually. Ultimately, that helps you in the long run. Thanks. Like, subscribe, share, etc.